Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of the Namibia Tourism live broadcast. Once again, we've got a whole lot of topics and a few destinations and also a little interview. Each week we try to do it a bit different, so hopefully once again we've got a bit of interesting news for you. First and foremost, obviously, topics. By the way, as you can see on the screen, my name is Frank Steffen. I'm the editor of Tourismus Namibia magazine, a magazine that comes out once a month and on which this whole live show is also based. It's because of this that we started bringing out, or because of the magazine that we brought out this once a week live broadcast to bring you up to date and sort of keep in touch with you throughout the month, because the magazine obviously only comes out once a month. So before we proceed, topics, but before that, we quickly have a look at the marketplace. Obviously very important. Huantagap River, if you look at the photos that we've brought along, very interesting. They were supplied to us. The river finally reached Matisa in Damra land. What a sight. Now you must imagine, Damra land obviously is in the northwest of Namibia, and as you would recall during our recent reports, that this is an area which really didn't see much water yet. So it might be late, but rather late than nothing at all. So we're obviously glad for these people. Very important water throughout northwestern Namibia. So Damaraland going up to Kokoveld, what is essentially the Kunene region. Yeah, and then up next, I've brought you another photo, which is a sort of telling tale. Because that one is from Kokoveld, and in Kokoveld, as we told you previously, it's dire news, and you can see here these animals are absolutely in no good condition. More and more farmers, especially the Ovahimba tribe, are bringing their animals to Opuvu, which doesn't particularly have much water either. And so it's good news to see that the first rains have been falling there. Last week in Parliament, our Prime Minister, Sarah Kukungelwa Amadila, actually announced that there would be something like 160 million Namibia dollars made available to farmers in these regions as to help them through this next patch of drought. And obviously that's a huge problem, no fodder, no proper water delivery and so on. So let's hope it becomes more bearable for these people. Then up next, obviously, we simply would like to keep you up to date, because Recon Africa obviously is an issue, and it's still largely resolved, because from week to week we don't really see much response from the Canadian oil drilling company. So this is in the UK, where a group actually gave a petition which they handed over to the High Commissioner, Linda Scott. And this next photo is obviously was made available by Fridays for Future in Botswana. And they basically passed on photos. These were demonstrations in front of the offices of Recon Africa in Vancouver. So that was to commemorate the World Water Day on the 19th of March. And as I said, the photo much right in the beginning, so actually was a letter given to Linda Scott as a result of Recon Africa being busy up in Kavango. And it was signed by the activists Nick Clark and Zoe Solomons. And in the UK, they actually do the whole activism under the motto of Recon Out. The photo came from Miranda Irvin, whereas these ones, obviously, like I said, they came from Fridays for Future in Botswana, and clearly shows that people are getting increasingly worried, and you obviously also have, to a large extent, people not only being worried, but actually being angry, because it is a form of neocolonialism. The way in which this whole thing is done, approaching this whole thing with that nerve of saying, okay, we're in charge, and you do as we do, and as we say, as long as we pay the account. And so people are really getting very angry. As said before in various shows, Recon Africa is really endangering our water reserves up in the north for two reasons. Number one, of being pollution, because drilling invariably has that effect. And what is worse is there's absolutely still no indication that they will not frack in that area. And to frack in Kavango, that would, it would be a death sentence to the elephants and those type of animals. It's not only the elephants, obviously, this is where the biggest portion of elephants is found, single population in the world. If we say Kavango, we obviously need to say Kaza, which is really the Kavango-Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, which is one of the hugest joint ventures between 5 countries, being Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. We were trying to actually get a big thing going, one of the biggest reserves in the world, and to basically conserve exactly elephants and obviously also buffalo and all types of other wildlife that we have there. So yeah, at least we're not in this fight alone. Next up, you can see the Museum Association of Namibia and the delegation of the European Union in Namibia, jointly with the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, virtually opened a Museum of Namibian Music last Thursday. So the launch is one of 4 components of a project entitled Museum Development as a Tool for Strengthening Cultural Rights in Namibia. And it is really funded by the EU and then implemented by the Museum Association of Namibia. And the project originally started off as from 27th November 2018, but it seems we are now approaching a point where things are happening. So good to see, and because my older argument has always been that we don't only need to forget about our recent history, but we must also live up to what was before. So it's time to go back, find what moved our people here in the past and what will move our people in the future. So those were our topics briefly this week. Up next, we've got destinations, but once again, before we go there, let's just tell you a bit about the marketplace. Well, destinations, here we are, and today I wanted to take you down to the deep south. I've always been of the opinion that the south is one of those areas which is underestimated, and so if you drive from Keetmans over towards further up the north and you go towards Tiras and Tiras Mountains and those areas, there's really a nice area to visit. This is really Namaland, essentially Namaland, but obviously all along the way you find farms and all types of lodges and guest farms and so on. So yes, this is a very nice area. Here's a photo which Chloe Durr took on earlier trips. And here's the map. I want to take you to Namtip Biosphere Reserve. Namtip obviously being one of those sort of lodges deep in the south. And what they say is that at Namtip they've got farming activities, be it with game or domestic animals, as well as human activities. And the long-term objective of Namtip Biosphere Reserve is really to prove that sustainable economic utilization of the land bordering the Namib Desert is possible. So you can see there's lots to do there. People are being taught about the area, they're being shown what sort of game is available in that place. I'm actually quite sure that zebra is probably hand-bred. But be it as it may, typically you have the desert horses and much wildlife going on in that area. And it is an experience. You can choose what you want to do. It can be enjoyed with good food and in a lodge environment, or you have the choice of making use of the camping areas. This photo is actually quite intriguing. It's a snake looking out of a little hole there. Yeah, typically quiver tree, and next to it these blossoming quiver trees. This is a picture of the lodge itself. You can imagine, I mean, Tiras Mountains, it's where the Kalahari meets up with the Namib Desert. And the result is you've got some of the most intriguing colors, especially in the mornings and evenings. Okay, obviously these are your bungalows, just to give you an idea what the sort of scene is, how it is set in the evenings. And these photos were all used courtesy of Namtip's Torsten Tyler, who manages that farm together with his wife Lynn. And the idea is what they do a bit of domestic farming, but then they obviously also do a whole lot of tourism. And that's really what it is all about, sustainability in terms of having the one and the other. Just imagine if they had just banked on tourism in the time of COVID. So at least these guys are able to survive in the area, which is just magic. I mean, you could just see on all those photos, you've got these camel thorn trees and obviously the surroundings. And like I said, if you look at our background photo, really, that is typical Harap area or Tiras area where more often than not the colors take different shades. Typically on the first photo that we showed of Chloe, you could see that yellowish color from the Namib, and then obviously the deep red color of the Kalahari. So Namtip is it's a really good tip, I would say. I actually was planning to phone Torsten and speak to him live, and then also show you a bit of background as we go along. It didn't quite work out, but I'm sure we'll go back there once again. It's not the first time we've been telling you about this area. And you will remember from last week's show, Chloe at the moment is down the Cape. So as we go along now, we'll start, number one, engaging with her from South Africa, see what different ideas she's got. She's due to cover much more in terms of what we call 10 degrees south, all the countries being south of that longitude, and in that way introduce Southern Africa to you. But she left us a little parting gift. So next up is a little video where she just tells you a bit more about Midgard, which we spent some time at recently, if you remember. Yeah, quite impressive. As you can see, Chloe was obviously very much into Midgard. She loved that. And in our case, we obviously, me personally, I'm much of a desert fan, so I really loved what happened at Namtip. And like I said, exactly what we've got here for Midgard, which we discussed previously with all its highlights, and they're in the process of rebuilding and reorganizing their whole system and busy building more rooms, adding more rooms, and really improving on Midgard. So really in order to give you a much better and bigger offer. But having said that, it really is depending on what you like. Midgard, make no mistake, allows you to really rest up well, and it's got all the modern amenities that you would need. But I personally, I'm typically the type of person who wouldn't mind going to Namtip and just enjoying that solitary camping space which you saw earlier, where you're alone, and at night when you wake up and you just can't believe that you're under the stars and it's so quiet. Now that's my scene. Not to say that I would never try and spend time there while actually being or making use of their accommodation facilities and restaurants and all that. But that's what I like, solitude. When I'm on leave, I want to rest up and clear my brain. So yeah, just two different destinations, totally different type of offers, but that's what Namibia is, really. It's all the time contradicting what you see and what you believe in. So, and what I liked about both those places is sustainability. That is their big thing. These people are dependent on nature, and they do realize that. And not only them, that's coming back to last week's theme where we spent a lot of time on Recon Africa. That's exactly why I cannot believe that we take one of our best places in the country and are prepared to possibly turn them into some of those landscapes that you see in Texas or Colorado or whatever, specked with all these fracking, drill holes and so on. That's not us. That's never been us, and we should never be that. That's why our Constitution actually says we try and protect our environment. So yeah, those are the destinations, really two different places, but so nice. Tiras being on the way between coming up the Karas and following the sand roads on the fringes of the Namib as you go towards Sossos. So it's really not out of your way. It just depends on how you approach your road to Sossos. And from there, obviously, you can carry on to Solitaire and Wolfish Bay. So a different approach this time. I hope you enjoyed it. So up next, we've got to the point. But before that, let's just have one last peek at the marketplace. Yeah, welcome back. Today, to the point, we've done a bit different. If you go to most Namibian towns on their fringes or wherever, even in town, you've got these various marketplaces. And invariably, if you look at Africa, people always expect to have these wood carvings and mosques and whatever. But something that has come a long way in Namibia in the meantime, and I dare say it was first brought here by some of the Zimbabwean artisans that decided to come to Namibia and make their living here, is these little metal work pieces of art, or whatever you want to call them. I believe it's art because some of that stuff is very, very well made. But it's gradually sort of been taken over by Namibians as well. And the nice thing about it, much of the stuff that or artifacts that which they produce can actually be used locally. So it doesn't always have to be stuff that is taken abroad by tourists coming to Namibia. And Elizabeth Joseph, one of our colleagues down in the south in Keetmans, she actually spoke to one of those people. His name is Andreas, and have a look yourself. It's just something that can be used locally in your gardens or wherever, but have a look.
Ek is Hendrikus Lambert. My huisnaam is Jackie. Hulle noem my Jacka, praat Jack, dis ek nicknames. Ek is gebore in Botanië en ek het groot geraak in Kosses. Ek het die besigheid met juwelerie en bloedritskap begin in 2009. 2012 Keetmans op toe gekom en 13-14 op straat geadverteer, stap besigheid gehad. Maar die besigheid toe my aan die sterwe het ek nou begin en nou hier goed te betaal en met kosgoede moet koop en toe het nou die besigheid nou nie genoeg inkomste vir my gehad. Die pak ek op toe begin het toen ek 2015 sigaretwerk. Met die sigaretwerk het ek nou die kajakie opgesit. En so sukkel ek maar met in die kajakie met die goedjies. So het ek nou die sigaretwerkie wat ek gehad het ook laas jaar verloor. Deur dat regiment. En so staan ek nou op die vlak met die goede. Ek het baie customers, baie mense wat belangstel. Ja, maar ek kan ook die mense verseker om bestellings in te sit. Weens die tekortkoming van materiaal. Dus dan, ek doen draadkarre, ek doen vindpompe, soos u daar sien, ek doen groentestampers, ideaal vir hostels. En jewelry, daar is klerenhangers. En daar is die vindpomp, so klerke uit mekaar uit. Nog moet aan mekaar gesit word. Hier is die hele afdeling van die draadkarre, hier is die groentestampers. Hier staan die draadkar, hier is die draadkar wat half is. Hier is die seat van die draadkar. Hier is die agterseat wat hier moet inkom. Die deur is nog nie gemaak. So hier is die agterseat.
Okay, so u kan maar net vir ons sê, wat is u behoefte, grootste behoefte?
My grootste behoefte is materiaal.
Okay.
Materiaal is my grootste behoefte. En daarvanaf verkoopsagent, dat ek die goed kan sit en by die huis maak. Want dit help wie, ek maak goedjies, ek gaan soek vir brood van met die goedjies, daar staan met die kant. En ek het te veel customers. Ja, vooral by die vindpompe en by die draadkarre. En die roerdrade, het ek baie customers.
Yeah, as you can see, it was actually a shame we missed out on the finished product. But in Namibia, most children grow up with a draadkarretjie, as we would call it, these little vehicles made up of just this little wire cage and fitted out with little plastic wheels and a long driving rod so that you can actually drive along the dry rivers and even on sand roads. Most small boys grow up with those sort of handmade little toys which give them the impression that they're steering their own car. But not only that, I mean, simple stuff such as hangers and stuff we used to simply buy from South Africa and bring into Namibia. It's good to see that there are people who are starting to see these sort of smaller alternatives to actually earning some money. And I really hope he's just one of many in Keetmans who try and make money that way. I know, for example, that many people like these little artifacts for their gardens. So let's hope and see. Maybe we'll bring you more of these sort of stories in the future, trying to show you that there are people trying their best to make a living. So on that note, I'll leave you for today. I hope to see you next week again. Until then,